I am Elias. I speak now about a presence that moves, where no footsteps are heard. A light that does not dazzle the eyes, yet quietly fills the soul. I speak about Mary, the mother who saves without noise, who enters the most hidden rooms of the human heart without opening a single door. If you have ever felt alone in your suffering, if you have ever believed that heaven had turned its face away from you, then know that it is precisely in that hour that she is nearest. And her nearness is so gentle that it is almost always mistaken for silence. From the beginning of my journey with God, I was fascinated by the loud moments of grace. The days when everything seems clear, when a prayer is answered in a way that cannot be denied, when a miracle flashes like lightning across the sky of an ordinary life. Those moments are rare and unforgettable. Yet as I walked further, I began to realize that the deepest transformations did not come from thunder, but from something softer and more hidden. They emerged out of seasons that seemed empty, deserts where I felt nothing at all. Only with time did I understand that Mary had been at work there, quietly, faithfully, like a mother who keeps watch over a sleeping child, adjusting blankets, soothing fevers, guarding against danger, while the child dreams on, unaware. Mary saves souls in silence first by standing where most of us cannot stand for long, at the edge of human pain that is raw and unadorned. She does not flee from our darkness. She has walked beneath the shadow of a cross. She has waited in the blackness of Holy Saturday, when it seemed that even the promises of God had died, because she has known that abyss of grief. She is not frightened by the depths of our despair. When a heart sinks into that interior night where prayer turns dry and the presence of God seems to vanish, she does not break that silence with loud reassurances or visions that erase the struggle. Instead, she simply remains there, quietly sharing the weight, adding her own silent yes to the battered yes of the soul. Her silence is not indifference. It is the silence of someone who understands that love sometimes works best when it does not demand attention. She knows that there are wounds that will close only if they are not constantly touched, fears that will loosen their grip only if they are not forced, but gently surrounded by a greater love. So she draws near without strain. A person who has forgotten how to pray finds that for some reason they cannot quite abandon hope. Another who has grown cold toward God still feels a strange tenderness when passing a small image of Mary. Someone who has wandered far away from faith feels a sudden urge to light a candle in a church they happen to pass, without knowing why. In these small, almost unnoticeable movements, she is already working, like dawn spreading along the horizon while the world still thinks it is night. Mary is a mother given not only to a single child in Bethlehem, but to every soul that God desires to draw into his life. Her motherhood is not an idea, but a living force that extends through time and space. She carries each person in a way that respects their freedom yet refuses to release them into despair. When someone reaches the limit of their strength, when they have failed yet again and feel too ashamed to approach God, she is the one who bends down in the interior shadows and lifts their chin, not with words, but with a quiet impulse of courage. It may come as the strength to say one more prayer after a long silence, or as the inexplicable desire to enter a confessional after years of running away. It may be nothing more than the refusal to give in completely to bitterness. The person thinks they have simply changed their mind. In truth, Mary has been there, sustaining that last fragile thread of trust. Her interventions are usually so humble that history does not record them. They take place in sick rooms, in prison cells, in crowded buses, in hidden corners of cities at midnight. A man on the brink of surrendering to despair finds himself remembering the simple song a grandmother used to sing about Mary when he was a child. The memories soften his heart just enough for a single tear to fall, and that tear becomes the beginning of conversion. A young woman overwhelmed by shame for choices she has made finds that whenever she passes a certain church dedicated to Mary, she feels both sorrow and a strange peace. One day the pull becomes too strong and she steps inside, just to sit at the back in silence. She believes she is alone with her guilt, yet Mary is there, quietly pouring balm over a heart that has been hard for too long. No thunder, no visions, no voices, just the secret work of grace through a mother's presence. Mary is especially close to those who cannot express their pain in words. There are sorrows for which there are no prayers, only sighs and clenched fists and nights without sleep. She listens to those unspoken cries as if they were hymns. She understands the language of tears. When a child is lost, when a marriage breaks, when sickness slowly eats away at strength, she does not attempt to explain the mystery of suffering. She does not come to argue with the mind, but to comfort the heart. Her saving work in such moments is not to erase the cross, but to ensure that no one carries it alone. She leans her own heart against the suffering soul, and by that contact shares with them the endurance that carried her beneath her son's crucifixion. There is a difference between loud miracles and silent ones. Loud miracles are the ones we tell stories about, where a disease disappears overnight or a danger is visibly averted. They are gifts, and they awaken faith in many. But silent miracles are the ones that rarely make it into books, because they happen in the fabric of daily endurance. They happen when someone who has every reason to give up somehow finds the strength to forgive, or to try again, or to rise one more time. They happen when a person who has been trapped in addiction begins to desire freedom and persists through countless falls. They happen when someone who feels utterly alone discovers a subtle but steady companionship in prayer, an awareness that they are being watched over, even when they cannot feel it clearly. In countless such cases, Mary is at work, not as a distant legend, but as a living mother, saving souls in the quiet by helping them cooperate with grace. Mary saves also by teaching the soul how to listen. Our world is loud, filled with opinions and information and anxieties that roar like waves. Within this noise, the gentle movements of God in the heart can easily be drowned out. Mary, who pondered every word of God in the stillness of her own heart, trains us by her example to cultivate interior silence. When a person begins to feel drawn toward moments of stillness, toward sitting in the soft light of a church in the evening, or toward turning off distractions for a little while just to breathe and be present, that desire often comes from her influence. She lures the soul away from constant agitation into a space where God can speak in whispers. She does not force a schedule of prayer upon anyone. Rather, she awakens a hunger for quiet that gradually becomes the soil where a deeper relationship with God can grow. In my own life, as I look back, I see places where I thought nothing holy was happening, and yet Mary was moving with infinite delicacy. There were times when my prayer felt dead, when I sat before God with a heart full of confusion and no words to offer. I believed that I was failing. What I did not understand then was that she was teaching me a different kind of prayer, one that did not depend on feelings or eloquence. She was inviting me simply to remain, to keep returning even when nothing seemed to change. That staying, that fidelity in dryness, was not my achievement. It was her hand holding me in place, unseen but firm, saving my soul from the subtle pride that wants to walk away when consolation vanishes. Mary is present in every Eucharist, in every humble Mass, offered in hidden chapels or great cathedrals, because where her Son is, the Mother is never far. When a soul kneels before the tabernacle and feels nothing, yet stays, something deep is happening. Her silent encouragement surrounds that act of faith. When a person who has been living far from the church suddenly finds themselves moved to slip into the back pew during a liturgy, merely to watch, Mary is often the one who has arranged that encounter behind the scenes. a chance conversation, a remembered hymn, a passing invitation from a friend. All can be threads she pulls together so that a soul can gently rediscover the presence of Christ. She also protects in ways we will never fully know in this life. There are temptations that never reach us because she has quietly stepped between. There are accidents that never happened because she guided events along another path. There are words we never spoke because she softened our anger at just the right moment. And those unspoken words spared relationships that would have been torn. When we look back over our days, we see only the surface of events. Mary sees the intricate web of causes and effects, of dangers and graces. She moves through that web as a mother through a crowd, always close to her children, always adjusting the path so that they can keep walking, even when they stumble. In the darkest nights of the soul, when a person feels abandoned even by God, Mary becomes the last light that refuses to go out. There are experiences in the spiritual life where prayer feels not only dry but impossible, where the very name of God seems heavy on the tongue. Some pass through stretches of inner desolation that make them question everything they once believed. In such hours, doctrines and arguments offer little comfort. What remains is often only a faint memory of having once been loved. Mary steps into that fragile memory and shelters it. She does not argue with the darkness. She simply stays beside the soul, like a quiet lamp in a window on a stormy night. The person may not even think of her explicitly, yet the fact that they do not fully turn away, that they still feel a tiny pull toward goodness, toward truth, toward any form of beauty, is often her work, keeping the ember alive under the ashes. There is a tenderness in her silence that changes how we suffer. With her, even the same pain begins slowly to be lived differently. It does not hurt less in a physical or emotional sense, yet it is held within a larger embrace. Imagine a child waking from a nightmare in a dark room. Alone, the darkness is terrifying. But if the child realizes that a mother is sitting at the bedside, quietly holding their hand, the room does not become brighter, yet the fear changes. The darkness is no longer empty. In a similar way, Mary sits at the bedside of every soul that wakes into fear. She may not always chase away the darkness, but she fills it with her presence, and that presence becomes a path through the night. Mary strengthens faith, not by giving long explanations, but by inviting us to trust as she trusted. She knew what it meant to live by promises that had not yet been fulfilled, to carry within herself a word from God that the world could not yet see. She lived year after hidden year in Nazareth with no miracles, no audience, no signs other than the steady growth of a child. For 30 years she walked in faith, and even after the public ministry began, she had to stand by while mystery unfolded in ways that must often have puzzled her. When she stands beneath the cross, every human reason to believe seems to be collapsing, yet she remains. In our own bewilderment, when God's ways confound us, she shares that same gift of remaining. Her silent example tells us that faith is not understanding every detail, but clinging to God even when the story seems to be breaking apart. When we feel distant from God, she does not compete with Him. She does not draw us to herself as a substitute, but as a gentle bridge. She knows that some who have been wounded by images of harsh authority or by broken human relationships struggle to approach God as Father. For them, the thought of divine love may be entangled with fear. Mary steps into that interior tangle and offers a different face of mercy. In the softness of her motherhood, many find the first safe place where they can rest. As their hearts heal in that space, she gradually turns them toward her Son, the source of the love they are tasting through her. In this way, she saves not only by comforting, but by restoring the capacity to trust in God Himself. There are countless stories of people who have turned to Mary in distress and experienced sudden help. and there are countless more where the help came slowly, invisibly, like water seeping into parched ground. I have seen lives that seemed hopelessly entangled in sin begin to change after a simple, humble prayer to Mary was repeated day after day. No lightning struck, no vision appeared. Yet over months and years, habits shifted, desires were purified. The person began to choose differently. They would say later that they did not know how it happened. Somewhere beneath conscious effort, a mother had been at work, arranging circumstances, obtaining graces, inspiring good encounters, shielding from certain temptations, and giving the quiet strength needed to keep going. Her chapels and shrines, scattered across the world, are like wells in a desert. People come carrying burdens that no one else sees. They light candles, they leave flowers, they whisper, or simply weep in silence. Many return home without any outward sign that something has changed. Yet in the privacy of their hearts, a tiny shift has occurred. A hardened resentment loosens a little. A fear that felt overwhelming becomes a little smaller. A sense of being unforgivable begins to yield to the daring thought that mercy might include them too. These are not grand events that history records, but they are the kind of miracles that populate heaven. Each one, a soul in whom hope has been reborn. Mary also works through the small acts of love she inspires in us toward one another. When a person suddenly feels moved to reach out to someone who is suffering, to call, to visit, to offer a word of encouragement, that movement of compassion often bears her signature. She sees the lonely, the abandoned, the despairing, and she stirs the hearts of others to be her hands. In this way, her silent saving work becomes embodied in countless gestures that may seem ordinary but are, in truth, threads in a great tapestry of mercy. A visit to a hospital, a patient listening to a friend in crisis, a simple meal shared with someone hungry, all can be ways that Mary is quietly rescuing souls from the isolation that leads to spiritual death. In the life of the Church, her presence is like the faint fragrance of a flower carried on the wind. Official doctrines and sacraments stand visibly at the center, needed and holy. Around them, sometimes unnoticed, moves the atmosphere of Marian tenderness, making it easier for harsh hearts to soften, for wounded people to approach. Wherever believers pray the Rosary, not as a mechanical recitation, but as a slow walking through the mysteries of Christ with Mary at their side, her silent instruction continues. In those repeated Hail Marys, she is not flattered for her own sake alone. Rather, she forms the heart to gaze with her upon the life of Jesus, to see his joys, his sorrows, his glory, and to let those mysteries reshape the soul. Her saving work is therefore always directed toward union with her Son. She does not keep souls for herself. She leads them, gently and persistently, into a deeper encounter with the heart of Jesus. When someone who has long feared confession finally finds the courage to ask for the sacrament, Mary is there, steadying their steps. When a person feels drawn to spend time in silent adoration before the Blessed Sacrament, Mary is often the one who has awakened that desire, knowing that in that humble presence of Christ, her children will find the healing they need. She knows that only in him is salvation, yet she also knows how fragile the human heart is, how easily it retreats. So she stands at the threshold, encouraging, comforting, urging forward without pushing. Sometimes souls worry that they do not love Mary enough, that their devotion to her is weak or inconsistent. She is not disturbed by this. A mother is not offended when a frightened child clings more to the father for a time, or vice versa. She is content as long as the child draws nearer to God. Her main concern is not to accumulate prayers for herself, but to be sure that none of her children believes they are alone. When someone turns to her with even a single sincere Hail Mary, spoken through tears, she responds with all the depth of her maternal heart. When someone has never learned her name, yet cries out simply for help to whoever in heaven might be listening, she hears that cry as well, and does what she can within the mysterious boundaries of divine justice and mercy. In the end, Mary saves souls in silence, because silence is the language of the deepest things. The most important events in a human life often unfold without fanfare. A decision to forgive, a quiet yes to a difficult vocation, a hidden act of charity, a secret renunciation of a cherished sin, all take shape within the sanctuary of conscience. Mary stands at the door of that sanctuary not to intrude but to guard. She whispers encouragement, not with words but with presence. When courage fails, she lends a little of her own. When faith trembles, she steadies it with the memory of her faith beneath the cross. When love grows cold, she fans the embers with the warmth of her immaculate heart. Mary saves in silence also through the sacraments of ordinary life, through the unnoticed offerings and small fidelities that no one applauds. There are parents who rise before dawn to go to work, carrying the weight of a family on their shoulders. And though they rarely lift their thoughts to heaven, their willingness to love day after day becomes an altar on which God can pour grace into their home. Mary stands beside such hidden sacrifices and presents them to God, polishing them with her own purity, so that they shine in His sight. A tired mother who comforts a crying child in the middle of the night. A father who quietly denies himself some comfort in order to provide for his children. An elderly person who offers their loneliness for the good of others. All these are places where Mary is silently at work, teaching hearts to mirror her own humble yes. She is present in moments of vocation, when a young man or woman senses a call to give their life more radically to God. Perhaps in consecrated life, perhaps in service among the poor, perhaps in a hidden consecration of the heart within marriage. Vocational calls are often delicate, like a melody heard only in the distance. Fears easily rise. What if I misheard? What if I am not worthy? What if I lose myself? Mary enters that interior dialogue in quiet ways. She knows what it means to be called unexpectedly, to have one's own plans interrupted by a greater design. She does not shout over the noise of fear. Instead, she magnifies the attraction of love within the soul. The person finds that, despite anxiety, the idea of giving themselves away keeps returning, wrapped in a peace that does not come from mere human calculation. Mary is saving this soul from shrinking back into smallness, drawing them instead into the wide adventure of God's will. Mary walks the streets of the modern world with a compassion that never tires. She is there when someone scrolls through a device late at night, feeling emptier the more they try to fill the silence with images and noise. She is there in the deep restlessness that leads so many to search endlessly for distraction. Her silent, saving work in this context is to gently sicken the soul of what does not satisfy, not as a condemnation but as a protection, so that eventually the person may turn towards something real. A sudden boredom with shallow pleasure, a new dissatisfaction with a life lived only on the surface, can be the first sign that she is near, turning the heart toward a hunger that only God can answer. She is present in the world of illness with a particularly tender care. In hospital corridors where machines beep and footsteps echo on cold floors, she moves unseen from bed to bed. To some, she brings courage to endure another treatment. To others, she brings the grace to let go in peace. Families who keep vigil at the bedside of a dying loved one often feel that the room is strangely full, even when few words are spoken. In that density of silent love, Mary often stands, welcoming the soul that is about to cross the threshold of eternity and comforting those who must remain behind. She saves here not only by praying for a good death, but by softening the fear of both the dying and the living. Mary loves especially those who feel unworthy of love. Many carry secret shame, convinced that their sins or failures have placed them beyond the reach of holiness. The enemy whispers that they are a disappointment to God, that they will never change, that they might as well stop trying. Mary's silent answer is to draw nearer precisely when the soul feels most stained. If a person is willing to make even the smallest gesture of trust, to whisper an imperfect prayer for help, she takes that fragment and wraps it in her own immaculate trust. She goes before God on their behalf with a boldness we cannot imagine, pointing not to their merits but to the wounds of her Son, and she obtains for them graces of repentance and new beginning. Many conversions that seem sudden are in reality the fruit of years of her patient intercession. Her presence is not limited by geography. In the busiest cities and in the most remote villages, in the noise of factories and the quiet of monasteries, Mary moves with the same maternal attention. She sees the teenager on the edge of despair because of bullying or rejection. She sees the migrant who feels invisible in a foreign land. She sees the prisoner sitting alone in a cell, replaying past choices with bitter regret. She sees the elderly person in a care home who receives few visits and wonders if their life still has any value. To each of these, in ways tailored to their unique story, she offers small rays of consolation, a kind word from a stranger, an unexpected message, a moment of beauty glimpsed through a window, a page of scripture that suddenly comes alive. Any of these can be her way of saying that she is here with them, even if the words themselves are never heard. Mary also saves by guarding the church in times of confusion. Through the centuries, waves of doubt, persecution, and scandal have crashed against the bark of Peter. Many have been tempted to walk away, wounded by the sins of members, or disillusioned by the frailty of human structures. In such storms, Mary stands as a quiet anchor. She reminds the faithful, often without words, that the church is more than its wounds, that beneath all the human poverty, there remains the living body of her Son. She inspires simple souls to keep praying, to keep loving, to keep believing. When so much seems broken, often it is through Marian devotion that the church finds her heart again, rediscovering the freshness of the gospel at the feet of the Mother. In times of war and social upheaval, when nations shake and the future feels frightening, Mary gathers souls under her mantle in mysterious ways. History remembers great Marian apparitions at certain moments, but between those rare public signs lies an ocean of quiet interventions. Soldiers in trenches who finger a small medal during bombardments, mothers in war zones who entrust their children to Mary as they flee, believers who form small circles of prayer amid political chaos. All are responding to a subtle summons that often comes from her. She does not promise to erase every calamity, but she preserves hope, and by preserving hope she saves souls from the greatest danger, which is the loss of trust in God. Mary's silence is not emptiness, but the fullness of one who is entirely attuned to the will of God. When we invite her into our lives in a conscious way, perhaps through a consecration of ourselves to her maternal care, we are not handing ourselves over to a rival of God. We are simply placing our hand inside the hand of the one who knows how to lead us most directly to Christ. Such consecration often changes little on the surface. Life continues with its same duties and struggles. Yet under the surface, something profound shifts. Mary begins to shape our reactions, to calm our impulses, to suggest kinder words, to nudge us toward the sacraments, to protect us from choices that would harden our hearts. She does this with immense respect for our freedom, but also with a firmness born of love. This, too, is part of how she saves us in silence. I have seen people who entrusted their families to Mary and later discovered that, in ways they could never have orchestrated, doors opened at just the right time. Friendships formed that supported faith. Crises were averted or transformed. They did not receive a map from heaven explaining each event. They simply lived, prayed, suffered, rejoiced, and later realized that a pattern of mercy had been woven through their days. When they traced that pattern, they found the delicate imprint of Mary's care at many points. A particular confession that changed everything. A retreat they almost did not attend. A providential meeting with someone who spoke a needed word. All became markers of her hidden guidance. Mary keeps nothing for herself, not even the gratitude of the souls she helps. When we thank her, she rejoices. But she also passes that gratitude on to God, like a mirror that reflects light back to its source. Her joy is complete when we discover not only her love but the greater love of the Trinity that flows through her. She sees herself always as servant, never as owner, always as mother, never as mistress. This humility is part of why she works so quietly. She does not need to be noticed. She is content to see us healed, reconciled, strengthened, even if we do not fully understand, until heaven, that she played a role. In a world that celebrates noise and spectacle, Mary's way may seem almost invisible. Yet the longer I walk with God, the more I see that the most enduring changes in a soul seldom begin with explosions. They begin like seeds beneath the soil, like the first green shoot pushing through ground that seemed dead. Mary is there, at that fragile beginning. She waters, she protects from frost, she pulls away small stones. Often we attribute the growth entirely to our own efforts or to circumstances, but she smiles in the background, happy simply that life is flourishing. I am Elias, and I invite you, as you listen, to consider your own story. Think of the times when you were surprised by a strength you did not expect, by a comfort you could not explain, by a turn in your path that led toward greater peace. Think of the moments when you could have fallen further into darkness but somehow did not. It may be that in many of those places, Mary was near, saving you in the quiet, asking grace for you when you had no words, keeping watch over you when you had turned your face away. If you allow this possibility into your heart, it may awaken a new gratitude, a new trust. From this day forward, you can walk with a deeper awareness that you are accompanied. When you wake with anxiety pressing on your chest, you can simply breathe her name and know that she is already holding your fear before God. When you fall into sin and feel ashamed, when you face decisions and do not know which path to choose, you can ask her to align your heart with the will of her Son. You may not hear an answer, but over time you will find that you are being led. Mary saves souls in silence, yet the fruit of her work is anything but silent. It appears in lives changed, in wounds healed, in reconciliations after years of division, in saints formed out of ordinary people. One day, in the light of eternity, her silent song will be heard, and every soul will see how her maternal love touched them. Until that day, we walk under her quiet mantle, often unaware, yet always held. This knowledge does not remove the mystery of suffering, but it gives us a companion in every trial. And that companionship, tender and constant, is itself a kind of salvation that begins even before we reach the gates of heaven.